Okay, guys, I hope everybody is doing well. This is the first part of Egypt that we'll be talking about. I've posted all the notes about Egypt just as I'm talking in class. I've typed them up like kind of like a written dialogue. Also, I will be posting some images from the smartboard, and I'll be talking about that. The first thing we talk about are the three geographic necessities of any civilization. And so, Egypt, when we talk about that, they were rich in natural resources, and they were well suited for defense, and they had water. Let's talk about water with Egypt just a second. The Nile River, we have discussed this. It can be argued it's the longest river in the world. No one will dispute it's one of the two largest rivers. A couple of facts about the Nile River is it flows south to north. Its origins are Lake Victoria in Africa, and it flows all the way northward to the Mediterranean Sea, flowing downhill as it goes, making it one of the largest river in the world at 4,100 miles long. The Egyptians depended on the Nile River. They worshiped the Nile River. It flooded every year, and they needed it to flood every year. So when the waters rescinded, when they after the flood, it left the soil fertile, and they could use that to plant their crops. And so they depended on the Nile River. And many ancient cultures, they worshiped things that they depended on and needed. And so Egypt had water, and it was an excellent source for them, and it was a source of life and everything that they needed. So that's why most of the civilization, its origins and the pyramids, all of that are along the Nile River basin. If you'll look, those people, my distance learners, how Egypt was well suited for defense, as I post you things from my smartboard. I believe it's slide 13. If you'll look at that, because I'm going to ask you, how is Egypt well suited for defense? Obviously, if you look, and you need to explain that by directions. To the north of Egypt was the Mediterranean Sea. To the east was the Red Sea and the Arabian Desert. To the south were cataracts and mountains, and to the west was the Libyan Desert. All of those things contributed to Egypt's strength as a civilization, protecting it, and also for trade and all the things that would come with later on becoming an empire when they're conquering and ruling other people. A few things to take note of in this first little bit of this topic, which we're going to go through quickly. Remember that the Pharaoh is in charge here, and the first Pharaoh that we mention or we need to know is Menes. It's in your notes, Menes. Also in the video that we showed, where Menes, who has two distinctions. The first distinction is the first Pharaoh to unite Upper and Lower Egypt, and ultimately his demise is he is mauled by hippos. A horrible ending to a king who had a very great rule for Egypt. So the first Pharaoh to unite Upper and Lower Egypt is Menes. I want you to know the difference, again, going back to that map that many people make a mistake. Lower Egypt is at the top of that map, the northern part. It's called Lower Egypt because the land is lower into the delta area, the marshy delta area of the Nile River spilling into the Mediterranean Sea. That's Lower Egypt. The land is lower. That's at the top of that map, which is the northern part of that map. And Upper Egypt is at the bottom of that map because it's Upper Egypt because the land elevation is higher. The river is coming down, so that's Upper Egypt. Some people make that mistake right off the back. So look at slide 13 if you're a distance learner, and I've put that there, and make sure that you understand that that is Upper Egypt at the bottom, not upper like would be on a sheet of paper, something like that. So Lower Egypt is at the top of that map, and Upper Egypt is at the bottom. Make sure that you know the difference with that. We know how it's well suited for defense. We know about Menes. And then I've also posted for all my students on Smartboard the different eras of the kingdoms of Egypt. We have the Old Kingdom, the first illness, the Middle Kingdom, the second illness, and the New Kingdom. Most Egypt history is divided into these things when one major event occurred. And for this first bit, I want you to know, when we think of pyramids, the pyramids are old. One of my favorite quotes is that man fears time and time fears the pyramids. The pyramids were built 2700 BC. They're ancient. They're very old. That's the Old Kingdom. If you progress through your notes, you will see that I've posted things or I've written things as though I'm talking to you as they occur. When we get to a quiz situation or a test, I will put that chart on your test that has the Old Kingdom, the first illness, the Middle Kingdom, the second illness, and the New Kingdom. I'll put that on that chart, and then I'll have an event written out, and you'll have to tell which time period it happened. And so it will make more sense as we go. In the early days, in the Old Kingdom, the time of pyramid building, the only person that the Egyptians thought had an eternal spirit that might have a chance to live forever was the Pharaoh. He was the only person that was going to have an afterlife. And so that was the purpose of building these big tombs, which we call pyramids. For the Pharaoh, his spirit, to enter into these tombs so that he could live forever. The priests had a great deal of power because they were the ones that would usher this Pharaoh into the afterlife. And that is why we have mummification, because they took the organs out of the dead Pharaoh and preserved his body. You saw that on the video where they would steep the body in a natron salt solution, and then they would embalm and wrap the body in the mummification process. And they would put in this tomb of the pyramids all of the Pharaoh's favorite possessions and all of the things that they liked in their lifetime, so that when they arose, their body came back to life, they would have all their favorite foods, their favorite toys, their favorite things that they liked in this life to keep them company. We'll talk more about the pyramids, and I'll post a brief video about that. But in this first little bit that we're talking about, that's the main characteristics of the Old Kingdom, and the fact that the Pharaoh is the only person that had this eternal spirit, which is called a Ka, K-A, Ka. And the Pharaoh was the only person to have this. Many people think that there's been debate about who built the pyramids. Was it slaves, like when we think of the Hebrews or the Israelites that were there in slavery by the time the New Kingdom comes about and Egypt is an empire? But that's probably not the case in the Old Kingdom. It was more than likely it was peasants and people, as that video explained, that built the pyramids because they were doing it for their Pharaoh, whom they worshipped. He was a god, and the Pharaoh was responsible for everything that happened in the kingdom. And so that could be good or that could be bad. If there's a famine, a drought, something like that, the Pharaoh is to blame for that. So that takes us up to most of the things I wanted to talk in a highlight about the Old Kingdom. And so make sure that you look at these notes, and these are things about the Old Kingdom, and look through those. If you have any questions, you can email me or we'll talk about it later. Thanks. Have a good day.